Whether you are just toying with the idea of starting your business or you're a little bit further along and you're working on building it, what goes on up here can absolutely shut things down if we don't learn how to take control of our thoughts and our mindset and to turn around negatives into positives. So today I have a special mindset edition of the show for you. I was actually interviewed by a friend of mine, Katie, and in this interview, we talked about how to take things that are seemingly negative and turn them into the very thing that can propel you forward in business, get you over your plateau, or unlock hidden levels of income. So let's jump into some mindset. Let's do this. Welcome to the Impactful Entrepreneur Show with Adrienne Hill, a place for online business industry expertise and thought leadership, where you can build the skills, structure, and systems you need to thrive in business and have a lasting impact in your industry. Let's do this.
I would love to introduce our speaker today. I'm so excited to have Adrienne with us. Adrienne, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to dig in and go deep with you guys.
We're going deep. So share with us, who are you? That's a big question. And what do you do? Tell us a little bit about you.
That is quite the question. I feel like I've worn quite a few distinct hats over the course of my life. I actually started out as an engineer, which is really
wow.
Yep. And then I became a project manager, and actually a good portion of my professional life, I managed billion-dollar brands for multi-billion-dollar companies and corporations, Fortune 500 companies.
Wow.
And so I was accustomed to launching big brands that you might see like in Walmart or Target, and managing big teams of big people with big budgets. And I learned a lot about marketing and launching. And leading teams during that time. But I'm not made to work for someone else. I was never very good at it. I was always the troublemaker.
A little rebel.
I think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, and I just didn't realize it until in my 30s. I just decided working for other people was just not for me. And at that point, it just became figuring out how to make that escape. Like how to actually make that jump. And so online business is where I jumped in because it's the perfect thing you can build on the side. Yes. And so now I consider myself a corporate dropout. I'm so done with that world. Still recovering from the scars it gave me, but it also did give me a lot of really good skills that I've now leveraged in building my business now. So I took a lot of those skills I built from that previous life. And I realized if I integrated, instead of trying to run away from all those things, because I wanted to get away from that world, but not all those skills were bad skills. A lot of us have things in our background or things in our history that if we look at every single unique experience, whether we liked it or didn't, even if it's something we want to run away from, there may be a nugget from that experience that feeds what I call our zone of genius.
Right.
Something that can help us uniquely bring value to others in a way that only we can do. Right. So as much as I wanted to escape that corporate world, and I'm happy that I did, I took those project management skills and marketing skills and I applied them to my business. And so I consider myself an online business coach, a social media strategist, if you will. And I systematized that process of building a business, bringing in leads, signing clients, customers, et cetera, systematized it and named it what I call the social media sales machine. And those project management skills have really paid off in building out my business and in teaching others how to build their businesses. So rather than running away from all those things, I embraced the parts that made sense, threw away the rest.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I basically specialize and focus in helping coaches, course creators, and network and affiliate marketers to build the skills, structure, and systems that they need to scale to six figures in business.
So I'm curious because a lot of women who will be watching are going to be asking the question, well, maybe they're in that corporate environment and want out, or maybe they don't. I mean, we're not going to say that it's bad or anything, but if they're in that place of whether it's corporate or not, I just feel like there's more. I feel like there's something else for me. But the fear of stepping outside of that box, the fear of the unknown, the fear of, gosh, what ifs go on forever. So I guess I'm curious, if I was to roll that back a little bit and say, you love what you do. You discovered that you were meant to be, you have always been an entrepreneur, as you say. When we're talking about purpose and just that calling on your heart, how did you navigate through that and really figure out that this was it?
Yeah. That's a great question, because there's so many people in that space.
Totally.
They're questioning, am I really being called to this? Is this just wishful thinking? Am I just being really ambitious? Should I just be happy with what I have? Like, is it wrong to want more? I mean, as women, humans in general, we're our own worst enemies.
Totally.
Women, we're especially hard on ourselves.
And
sometimes the minute we feel called to more, or we feel like we want something bigger, we instantaneously feel guilty for it at the same time.
Totally.
Right? It's a weird dynamic. And the second some of those emotions start coming into play, that fear sets in. And the first thing I would say about that is, I just always had this, it was almost like a whisper. It was just a quiet whisper. It was like a tiny little nudge somewhere deep down of just like, but don't you want something else?
Yeah.
Don't you kind of want a different life? Like, hey, and it was just like this quiet nudge, this little whisper, this little thought in the back of my mind that just kept coming up.
It doesn't go away.
It didn't go away. It kept poking me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, still
remember me?
Hey, like, you can try to ignore me as long as you want, but I'm right. And so if you're watching this and you're like, I kind of feel like I've been getting that for a while now, there's a reason that that's been placed on your heart, right? There's some bigger purpose you have. There's some larger impact you're meant to have that you'll never be able to unlock until you acknowledge that little voice is there. Stop trying to stuff it in the trash can or in the closet, right? Like, acknowledge it and start asking smart questions about, like, well, but what do I do with this feeling?
Yes.
Right. You have to, at some point, the first hurdle any entrepreneur must always overcome is fear. It's always fear is the first hurdle for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
The fear of getting started is scary, but none of us as humans, the way our minds work, the way our brains work, we're wired to, we will never step forward until the pain of staying where we are
is too great,
exceeds the pain of moving forward.
It's so true.
It's just how we are. And so, but also if you're really good at going through visualization exercises and visualizing a future that you want to step into, instead of moving from this pain has to be bigger than this pain and it's all pain, like, how terrible, right?
Let's quit now while we're ahead. Yeah.
Right. Like, who wants to live in that place of like, oh, I just have multiple thresholds of pain in my whole life. Like, no, we don't want to live there, but everyone usually starts there. Once you start learning to visualize, at some point, what propels you forward is that the power of that vision is so appealing and so powerful that instead of moving forward to avoid pain, you're moving forward to achieve benefits.
Yes.
And you feel like you're being called to something, which is a much more positive feeling.
It's a pull rather than feeling like you're pushing. Yeah.
Correct. Right. But for almost all of us, it starts with avoiding pain and frustration. Right. So if you've been feeling that little voice and you've been trying to ignore it and you're thinking, well, someday I'll make that step someday. Well, you could wait until you're in a really, really, really painful spot, or you could just do it now. I mean, I'll just throw that out there.
It's a great idea. Yeah. Well, isn't it funny though, that it's like the thing that's coming to mind to me right now is fear of the unknown. But what's so ironic is that we're afraid of what we don't know. But the truth is we don't know. We don't know tomorrow. Even if we think that everything is as it should be today, and we're afraid to take that step and, launch your own business, for example, since that's what we're talking about. why are we so afraid of that when perhaps tomorrow you get laid off or tomorrow something happens? So the fear is almost misplaced. It's like we create it, well, obviously to stay safe. But like you said, eventually safety feels really cramped and suffocating. So I love what you just shared. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
So when obviously you're running a business now, I guess my next question would be, when you encounter those feelings, imposter syndrome, fear, who am I to do this? All of those feelings that come up no matter where we are in life. How do you handle? And, what's an example of something you've been through that's been very difficult that you've navigated through, and how did you do that?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, there's a lot of people who talk about, the biggest hurdle any of us will ever face in business ever is mastering what goes on up here. Right? Because our brains are wired to keep us in comfort zones and avoid danger and avoid fear and all those things. Like, mastering our thoughts is always the toughest. And so there's so many people out there who they think about mindset is one thing. You can either work on your mindset or you can work on your skill sets, and they separate them.
Interesting.
Which I find so interesting because, and I tell my clients this all the time, learning to master your thoughts and master your mindset is a skill set. They're not two separate things. Mastering your mindset is the most important skill set you'll ever build.
I was going to say, you need that in order to incorporate the skills that you need on top of that. But if you don't get that part sorted out first, I don't know. Right. Is it going to work? Yeah.
And so a lot of people are like, well, I can either work on building the skill set or I can work on my mindset because my mindset's holding me back. So I have to tackle the mindset first.
Yeah.
And then once my mind is in a great place, I'll go do the thing, whatever the thing is. But it's really interesting. It doesn't work that way. And this might scramble your brain a little bit, but hang with me. And then I'll give you an example of I'll actually address your original question. We're kind of jumping around, but you guys will see where I'm going with this. So it's like, usually if your mindset is going into terrible places, imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, who am I to think I can start a business? Who am I to put myself on social media? Who am I to fill in the blank? Yeah. Right? Doubting thoughts. Usually mindset issues are a symptom. It's your gut instinct telling you that you're missing a skill set.
That's true.
Which is so for example, if you're like, who am I to go out and start this business and share this content and people are going to judge me or they're going to think I'm being salesy or whatever. We all have these thoughts. That's just your intuition telling you, hey, I don't understand marketing yet. If you're afraid of being salesy and afraid of being judged, you don't have to go work on your mindset around that. You just build the skill set of knowing how to leverage marketing and the terrible thoughts go away.
That's so true.
Right? So it's usually just use those moments of fear to actually guide you towards what you need to learn next. On whatever that thing is that you're afraid of most, if you tackle that thing, your breakthrough or your next big jump is on the other side of that. Right? So if you're afraid that there aren't enough people to talk to and how would I ever grow a business and where will I find these clients? A lot of that is like scarcity thinking, lack mentality. There's not enough, any feeling of there's not enough for me. Yeah. There's not enough people. There's not enough clients. There's not enough money. There's not enough. That's simply your intuition creating fear to tell you that you're missing the skill set of knowing how to generate traffic. Okay, well, let's go learn to generate traffic.
I love what you're saying because in the last 2 years, I've done so much work on myself and my mindset and all that. And I was just thinking, I bet so many people could relate to this. It's like the minute you realize there's a gap, like I don't know how to do X, it's so easy to go to a place of just overwhelm. Like, okay, therefore, I'm not going to be able to do this. And then I make it about me and my lack of worthiness and how much I suck. And when in fact, it's just a skill set that if I can just take the steps to master. But yeah, I'm just having lights go off. Like, that was me for probably a good 8 years. Just apparently I suck, as opposed to not understanding the process or the skills.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, I'm just missing a skill set. If I go learn it, I'll be just fine. So I had a client once, and sweet as ever, her name was Dawn, and she was saying, I don't think I can do this. Like I was teaching her attraction marketing, and all of a sudden all these people were coming to her, and she was like, oh my God, right? Like, what do I do with all the people? And it was kind of fun and exciting and scary.
Yeah.
And I said, well, what's happening? She said, well, they're all coming to me and I'm replying to them, but there must be something I'm saying that's chasing them away. So I just have no confidence. I think I need to go find a confidence coach. And I was like, oh, now that's interesting. I said, okay, so you think you need a confidence coach? She's like, I'm convinced, because like, I'm not confident enough to reply to these people. Like, I'm afraid now because clearly I'm chasing them away. So clearly confidence is my problem. Clearly I need a confidence coach, right? Like, it makes sense. And I said, well, Dawn, tell me this. If you knew exactly what to say and how to say it, to have all of those people replying to you and begging for more info and asking to book themselves on your calendar, would you feel more confident? She was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'd feel like $1 million. And I said, so you don't need a confidence coach. You just need to learn what to say and how to say it to stop chasing people away. She was like, oh my gosh. Well, what is that?
About
like,
me?
Right? It has nothing to do with that my mindset's in the gutter. I'm like, no, your mindset's in the gutter because it's trying to tell you you're missing a skill. And in this case, the skill is copywriting. The art of knowing what to say and how to say it. That's called copywriting. So let's teach you copywriting. And she was like, well, geez, that's easy. I mean, I thought I had to go find a confidence coach and work with them for 6 months. I'm like, goodness, no. But that's copywriting. That's something you can fix in a week.
Yeah, 100%. That's amazing.
Right. So let's not take 6 years to address some of these things. So I lay that foundation. I say all of that to go back to your original question of some of the biggest struggles that I went through early on in business was, some of those things I mentioned of like, I'm putting all this great stuff out there. I'm interacting with people. They're starting to interact with me. Of course, I'm looking for clients or customers, people who want to buy my courses, whatever. And, like they all keep coming back with the same objections and the same reasons no, and the same reasons why now's not the time, or like, right.
Yeah.
And I was looking at all of those exchanges, all of those no's as problems. The minute I looked at the commonality of all the things I was hearing, and I looked at all of those negative things as positives, my business turned around. So for example, I looked in the commonalities of all the reasons people were saying no.
Yeah.
That then became my marketing language to sell the thing. And I realized all these problems people have, if I'm the one that can solve those problems, I become the client, the coach, and they become the clients. So all those things that were seemingly bad were actually exactly what I needed to level up. I was like, oh, well, this thing and this thing and this thing, actually, I know how to solve that problem. I just never have directly spoken to it or marketed that way. But what would happen if I did directly speak to that and I did directly market it that way? And so I did, and boom, business grew. So with every single challenge, every single setback, every single rejection, every single terrible thing that happens, I now ask myself, instead of saying, why is this happening to me? I say, why is this happening for me?
I love that. It's such a powerful reminder.
For me. Yeah. And behind every time I ask that question, I realize there's a golden nugget, and I level up again, and I level up again. And it's looking at the same thing, just a different way.
That's beautiful, because I think it's so insightful for you to share that, in that so many women just throw in the towel because they haven't figured out the mindset that's tripping them up and been able to tweak it so that they can use the pain and the frustration and the uphill battle, if you will, to see how they can grow from it. I mean, imagine the great physical shape you're in once you climb a mountain. Like you know, it's hard and it can feel difficult, but it's necessary. So I love what you shared. So for the women that are watching who are, you know, considering whether it's going into business or, you know, pursuing, I don't know, there's a bajillion things that a person could be thinking about, but for you, what would be an action item that you would suggest they take on like today to move forward?
And it kind of depends on what phase they're at, but I guess regardless of the phase, my business changed when I started looking at just a few key things differently. The first was every problem that you're encountering, every issue that you're having, look at it as the one learning moment that you need to finally move off the plateau you're on and level up. And how can you leverage that, what seems like a problem, to your benefit? Because imagine if I came on here and I said, like, the day I started my business, I made $1 million. I've never had a single challenge. I've never had a single obstacle. Everything I look at and touch turns to gold.
Right.
And here, let me be your coach.
Right.
You'd be like, this girl is not equipped to help me with all the problems I'm having because she's never had any. Like, how is someone who's never had a problem a day in their life going to help me? Like, I have 52 problems and I need help with all of them right now, right? So look at each one of those problems as like, oh, now why am I encountering this? I bet in the future, there's a client or a customer who's going to have that exact same problem, and I'm going to be able to help them through it. Right? Or all these people are all sharing the same common problem. If I create a solution for that and then market it to them, right? So all of the problems and challenges are actually like, God is giving you the little pieces you need to level up. You just have to learn to look at them that way.
Yes.
So that's the first little piece of advice I would give. And the second is you can certainly try to figure it all out yourself. And you can do that. I did that for 6 years and I struggled for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I started working with someone who was 2 or 3 steps ahead of me, they weren't 22 steps ahead.
Right.
They were just 2 or 3 steps ahead. They were just enough ahead of me that, number one, they could look back and they could still relate to the place I was in. Right. That's why I never worked with someone 22 steps ahead.
Right.
3 steps is kind of like ideal, right?
Absolutely.
They could still relate to where I was at and understand my problems. But they were far enough ahead that they could say, hey, like, oh, I see where you're headed. Avoid this pitfall, avoid that pothole. Let's move you over here. And they can get you there 10 times faster if you're willing to work with someone who's a couple steps ahead and who can help you out. So absolutely connecting with a coach or a mentor can be a game changer in your business. I made 10 times less for 10 times longer when I tried to do it all myself.
Right.
And I made 10 times more, 10 times faster when I started working with a coach who was 2 to 3 steps ahead of me. So I would definitely recommend that. I struggled for 6 years in business and then I made 6 figures in 6 months. The difference was like the 2 tips I've shared with you so far.
100%.
And then the third tip. So this is what I would call like the big 3, right? It's learning to look at challenges differently. It's working with someone just a few steps ahead of you. And then the third one is honestly embracing the mindset that anything in business, anything in life, but certainly anything in business, you invest first, earn second, right? Invest in learning the skill, then you get to monetize and reap the benefits of that skill, right? Invest in learning the strategy, make money using the strategy. Invest in, advertising, make money from that advertising. Invest in coaching, learn something, monetize it into your business. So many of us, we recognize that in other aspects of life. Like we recognize you go to college, you get the degree, you invest first.
Right. Of course.
Then you go and you get the job and you make the money, right? If you want to open a Starbucks franchise, you pay for the franchise first, right? You're probably in a lot of debt. But then as it starts running, you monetize it and you make all that money back. But somehow the minute we're in online business, we flip our thinking and we find ourselves going, well, as soon as I make some money, I'll go hire a coach.
I did that for a long time too.
I did that too. I did that for 6 years. That's why I struggled for 6 years, right? So it's like you always invest first, earn second. Always. And so the very first hurdle any of us will ever face is always fear. The second one is always investment. Always. Whether you're investing time or whether you're investing money or whether you're investing both, you're investing something.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so the first hurdle everyone hits is fear, period. The second hurdle everyone hits is investment, period, right? So those are what I would call like the big three. If you could take action on, if I could go back in time to my past self and go kick myself in the butt, in that 6-year period where I was struggling, those would be the three things that I would go back in time and tell myself.
I love that. It's so true. I can absolutely relate 5,000%. Thank you for your time, your wisdom, so many golden nuggets in this. And I just really appreciate you being part of it.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Impactful Entrepreneur Show. If you found amazing value here, like, subscribe, and leave us a review to help other people find the high value content that we share, and find us on social media so we can continue the conversation. See you in the next episode. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Impactful Entrepreneur Show. If you found amazing value here, like, subscribe, and leave us a review to help other people find the high value content that we share, and find us on social media so we can continue the conversation. See you in the next episode.